Hello everyone. Babula and I are back with you again for the next part of the lunar cycle, which is the solar eclipse in Gemini. And Babula is going to kick it off for us. Babula, tell us what are the star trails doing?
They're very busy in the month of June. Very, very busy indeed. There's a lot happening. So I'm sure many people watching this will be aware there's quite a lot of action going on in the sign of Gemini. The sun's in Gemini. All the Gemini people are having their birthdays, and Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is retrograde in Gemini. And there is the solar eclipse coming up in Gemini. So it's not just the Gemini month, it's Mercury retrograde in Gemini plus the solar eclipse. And, you know, we just had the lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago in Sagittarius with the sun in Gemini, the moon in Sag, and now the sun and the moon will be making a solar eclipse in Gemini. So it's very, very much the Geminian, pardon me, energy.
Does that happen very often that you have all that energy around one side?
No. To have Mercury retrograding in his own sign doesn't happen all that often. I mean, we get frequent Mercury retrogrades every year. There's 3 of them, but it doesn't always happen when Mercury's in his own sign. And the fact that it's going on while we're in this big eclipse season across Gemini, Sagittarius is just adding so much energy to that story that Gemini represents.
It's just full on, isn't it?
It's full on.
Yeah.
So Gemini is an air sign, and the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, are all to do with the mental plane, thinking, mind, human relationships. And Gemini is particularly the sign of words, speaking, messages, information, ideas, written information, verbal information, conversations, phone calls, meetings, zapping around in the car to appointments, you know, busy. It's a mutable air sign. And I think it really demonstrates so strongly and highlights how our minds, you know, in India, they call it the monkey mind.
Yes.
You know, the busy mind that's, you know, here, there, and everywhere. And that's very emphasized in the sign of Gemini.
It's very tiring, I can tell you.
It can be very tiring because it's like a friend of mine said, she feels like her feet haven't touched the ground.
Yes, that's true.
You know, like, and you hardly have a moment to take a breath. Because even when you might have the day sort of mapped out to some extent, and you've got your appointments and you've got a bit of a plan, like things just keep happening. There's the phone call, and an hour later you get off the phone and, you know, and your thing's been kind of thrown out, or you missed the train, or the appointment that you had the wrong date. Or you get stuck in traffic when you need to be somewhere at a certain time. There's this. And with Gemini, it's all about the little things, you know, the little things that can make us tear our hair out. Those little things that just keep happening. Or you've got a piece of work you need to get done and suddenly your computer goes on the blink. Or some program that you always use that's very reliable just stops working.
So there's interruptions, disruptions, mayhem, like Mercury, this little planet that's really close to the sun. You know, in mythology, Mercury Hermes wears many hats. He's the god of many things. One of them is he's actually the god of mischief. And I often think of these Mercury retrograde periods as when Mercury gets up to mischief. He's like a naughty child, you know, who knows he shouldn't tip that packet of sugar all over the floor, but just can't help himself, you know? Yes.
You know, it's that kind of, I just got to do that. He's also the god of thieves and liars. So words that come out of our mouth, are they truthful? Gossip?
Yeah.
Yeah, like having those conversations about people like, oh, did you hear about so-and-so, and spreading rumors, Chinese whispers, by the time that rumor or that that information's passed through half a dozen or a dozen people, it's something completely different altogether.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
a fleet of foot god of mischief. And
Yes.
he has wings on his ankles too, doesn't he?
He has wings, and he's got a helmet with wings on it. So he moves very, very fast. The images of Mercury Hermes, he's always this very slender, youthful figure. Kind of masculine, very youthful, a little bit androgynous almost. But yeah, moves really fast, like our minds. Our minds zip around it. If you ever tried to meditate and just watch your mind, man, it's all of a sudden your mind's gone off on another train of thought, and you've got on board another train, and you're way off somewhere, and you go, how did I get here?
Yeah.
I was back here watching my thoughts, and now I've wandered off over here.
We all have that, don't we?
Like that,
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about Gemini is that it's about our curious mind, that love, and those of us who have Gemini energy in our chart, and it's all getting activated now, whether we have planets in Gemini or not. It's that curiosity to want to know. And it's like, oh, what's that? Oh, I want to know more about that. Or, oh, I've just had this really interesting conversation with someone and they've recommended a book. I have to go home and get the book and read it. Or you've just been caught up with a few friends and, just meant to have half an hour chat over coffee, and 3 hours later you're still talking. But it's that curiosity, that love of connection. And on a more serious note, Gemini absolutely is the messenger. So sometimes the information can be really profound and important.
So let me ask you a question about that. I'm just thinking with the messenger, because you've got the Gemini Sagittarius axis, right?
Yes.
And Sagittarius is the archer sending out seeds of knowledge as well.
Interesting. Yes, exactly. So I'm always eternally fascinated by the signs that sit opposite each other in a polarity. So they're different, but they're very connected. So both of these signs, Gemini and Sagittarius, are about knowledge and ideas. Gemini does the gathering, the gathering of information, through conversations, through reading things online, through reading books, through going to classes, meeting people, all of those sort of avenues that we have, looking up dictionaries. Oh, what does that word actually mean? That kind of thing. Sagittarius is the fire sign that's more about, I've gathered all this data and information to satisfy my curiosity. What does it all mean? So Sagittarius is looking for the big picture. But for the last year or so, the nodal axis has been in Sagittarius, Gemini, which is why these eclipses are happening in those signs. It's because the North and South node are in Gemini and Sag during this period. So the South node is in Sagittarius, and the more every sign, we've got to consider the negative and positive expressions of them. With the South node in Sag, we all need to be very aware of our tendency to be a bit self-righteous and I know what the truth is, get on our soapbox and beat the drum. And with the Gemini North node, which is a lot about what this coming eclipse will be about, it's can I be open and curious enough, like some people would call it the beginner's mind, to actually hear something in a new way, and admit, I don't really know the answer to that. Like often a Gemini might just make it up because they just have to know stuff, but maybe to say, look, actually, I really don't know. This is my opinion and view, but I don't really know whether that's actually right. Maybe I need to do some more looking and reading and opening my mind. So we're being called to open our minds to different ideas and ways of seeing things, you know. Yeah. So it's mutable, this energy, and it's very mutable right now. So everything's moving very fast.
Yes.
Information is flying around at lightning speed. Yeah.
Yeah, and before you know it, there's another news item and another news item.
Oh, I know.
Keep up.
No, and it's virtually impossible. So we have to just kind of filter and just kind of. So what I find myself doing is just picking up a thread here or picking up a bit there and getting the general gist, because I can't, you know, just can't do it all. And yeah, and we end up just getting too stuck in our heads.
Yes, that's very true. And I was actually thinking this morning, saying to a friend, how I just felt overwhelmed from all the information that's coming in. I just have to pull back and say, no, I need to have a breather.
Yes, and breathing is a really good clue in Gemini, because in the body, Gemini is the lungs, and literally our breath and our breathing and that exchange, because Gemini's got a lot to do with exchange. Exchange of ideas, information, connecting. So Gemini in the body in medical astrology is the lungs and how we take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. And if we're doing that well and bringing consciousness to our breath, which is what a lot of the yoga practices are about, you know, pranayama, you're actually stopping and being still, closing your eyes and bringing consciousness to breath. Everything slows down again, and we come more out of the mind, just watching breath. You know, there are meditation practices which are just about sitting and watching breath and doing nothing else. And it's not easy because the mind keeps wandering off. So that practice of breath awareness can be a really helpful grounding and calming energy with all of this Gemini agitation. So I think agitation is a good word with all this Gemini action going on. It's like this big washing machine. Everything's just like swooshing around and spinning about in all directions, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very much like that.
Yeah.
You're caught in a whirlwind.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like, you know, we could say, well, we need to be grounded, but it's not easy to be that grounded when there's a lot of Gemini activity. But I think if we can bring some attention to our breath and our breathing, because if you think about it, we can only speak on our breath, can't we?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, I remember when Christopher Reeves, for example, you know, the actor who played
Superman,
you know, had a riding accident and broke his spine, and he had to have a machine to breathe him, and he could only speak on the out breath, and then the machine he could breathe in, and there'd be a pause, breathe out, and he would speak. So it was such a clear graphic demonstration to me of how breath and our speaking and our capacity to actually verbalize is very, very connected.
So in all that rushing, what's going on what's moving through that?
Okay, so let's look go through it, and get a bit of a sequence. So the eclipse itself is on June the 10th, at 19 degrees of Gemini. So that solar eclipse is the sun conjunct the moon. Normally it would be, it is a new moon, but every 6 months when these moon cycles line up with the nodes, they form eclipses.
Okay. Do you know if we'll be able to see that from Australia?
You know, I didn't check that. Let me just get the time of day, because that will tell me. It's going to be in the evening, 8:52 p.m. our local time.
Did you say 8:52?
8:52 p.m. No, we won't see it because A solar eclipse is when the moon passes between the earth and the sun. So the sun is blocked out. So it's in the northern hemisphere. It'll be during the daylight hours. The moon will pass across the sun. So it's not a total eclipse, which means the moon won't totally cover the sun, but it will sit kind of in the middle of the sun and there'll be a ring of light around it.
Okay.
Which is interesting symbolism. You know, one way of looking at that, you could say the darkness is going to cover the light, but the light doesn't fully disappear because there's this ring of light. You know, the light will still be visible. So 19 degrees of Gemini, if any of you have planets around that kind of 19-ish degree, this eclipse will be quite a strong activation for you. It will be for everybody. They always are, but specifically if this triggers hit something in your own chart. So the specifics of this eclipse are very interesting. This eclipse at 19 of Gemini forms an exact conjunction, just 1 degree off, with Mercury retrograde.
Oh.
So it's the sun, moon, and Mercury retrograde all within 1 degree of each other. So Mercury retrograde is all over this eclipse. So as if it needed any more amplification, but obviously it does because that's what's happening.
Wow. Yeah, that's
I know. So eclipses are often referred to with words like portals. I mean, that word is used so much these days. I've been thinking about that word and I thought, well, you know, what is a portal actually? I mean, you can look at it in all sorts of esoteric dimensional ways, of course. But a portal is basically a doorway or an opening, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we kind of step through into from one experience or state or situation or dimension into another on whatever level we do. So, and I think that's very true. I think eclipses are portals. They're very powerful and they're potent. And the ancient astrologers used eclipses like it's extraordinary without any technology whatsoever apart from natural technology. They could actually predict all of these eclipse cycles by direct observation and working out the rhythms and the patterns of them.
Yeah. Could also be a doorway, like from one reality to another, but not in an esoteric way, but from one perspective to another.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially with if it's Gemini and it's information. Information changes.
Exactly. And from one way of thinking or, you know, maintaining a certain position and then coming across some information that can be very challenging because it might require us to change our thinking. And we don't always like that, you know, we want to maintain our position.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
yeah.
the duality there.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, you know, Gemini is I mean, there are a few signs of duality, but Gemini is the sign in which we first meet duality. It's because it's the sign of the twins. There's two, you know, those two, even the symbol has the two lines with the lines connecting them up on upper and lower. So it's that sense of where things split off into two polarities, into two opposites. And you know, Geminis are very good with this. They dance all the time with opposite positions and opposite ideas. And it can sometimes feel to other people like a Gemini is not always telling the truth. Now, lies happen in Gemini. You know, there are people in the public arenas who have strong Gemini energy who lie all the time. We know that. But it's not that Gemini lies necessarily. It's that there's always two sides. And I'm thinking of someone that I enjoy, not everyone does, but I do and have for many years, Russell Brand, who has a lot of Gemini. And it's that brilliant mind. He moves and he dances and he's not fixed to one position. He asks questions, he interviews, he questions everything. He raises questions, he poses questions. You know, what do you think about this? And I've come across this information and I've interviewed this person and they say this and it's changed the way I think and I see things, you know. That's Gemini working magnificently. It's that mutable capacity to stay really open and look at different possibilities. And yesterday I saw it like this and I've come across more information Today I'm seeing it a bit differently.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. It can drive other people crazy.
Because
But you just said, well, that was then, now I'm saying this, you know.
Yeah, not always easy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It can seem a bit sort of, you know, he speak with forked tongue kind of thing, you know. Like, I'm sorry, that can be offensive to some because I'm just going back to those old movies when I was a child, you know.
Yes.
But, you know, it's that idea of, what's true. So also because it's all Gemini and Mercury's here, we can just feel like we're going crazy from just so many things to do, so many demands on our time, things keep changing, there's constant disruptions to our focus, you know, we're kind of working on this and now suddenly something else has happened that I've got to deal with. And, you know, it's all of that, or the phone calls, suddenly you've got to drop everything you're doing and rush out the door and go somewhere else because something's happened.
So it's an energy that makes you reprioritize very regularly, isn't it?
Very.
Which is not a bad thing.
No. We have to be very adaptable and loose and flexible. And I always say that about the mutable signs. Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, they teach us to be flexible, like a dancer. You know, those balance things where you practice the balance arts, you know, just to be really adaptable and go with change.
Yes.
These are not signs that are fixed in place. Nothing's fixed here.
Which is actually the reality, because if you think about it, all knowledge is in a state of flux.
Always.
A constant state of flux.
Yeah.
Even though we as a society try to have a consensus reality, that's actually incorrect.
That's right.
So so Gemini reminds us to stay open.
Very open and very curious. Always curious, you know, like, oh, I wonder about that.
I can see how that works in with that Sagittarius, because Sagittarius wants to get to the truth of the matter, doesn't it?
Always questing, searching, seeking, looking for the big answers to the big questions, you know. Yeah. So, you know, those signs also, as I've said before, have a great deal to do with the media and all those channels through which information is exchanged. And of course, this is a big issue. It has been for a long time, but it's become very kind of clear because the other piece of this eclipse, I've talked about Mercury retrograde being here. The eclipse and Mercury retrograde are also making a strong square to the planet Neptune in Pisces. And that Neptune energy brings in that sense of, is that illusion? Is that false? Is that true? What does that really mean? Is that a smoke screen? Is that just a distraction? Is that real? Is it a fantasy, you know? Things are not clear and certain. So that can create a lot of people are already feeling it, and it's going to be a sense of just absolute overwhelm. Overwhelm, mental exhaustion, stress, like, oh God, it's all too much. How can I cope? You know, how am I going to get through another day of this kind of feeling?
Yeah.
And the real message always with Neptune is easy for us to say, it's not easy for humans, is it's around letting go. Like we just cannot do everything and fix everything. Sometimes we just have to let go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
just let go.
Yeah.
Or like you said earlier when we were chatting before we started, like sometimes you just got to drop a few things, let them go. You know, otherwise we just end up in complete overwhelm and then we're feeling fried.
Yeah, burnout, that's for sure.
Burnout, exhaustion, yeah. So it's a lot. This is a lot, and I think that sense of overwhelm is really important for us to come to terms with and find ways for each of us in our own way to kind of manage that and try and mitigate it and reduce it, and just, you know, that'll be different for everyone how we do that. It might be a spiritual practice that you commit to during this time to just have even if it's short, frequent times to just be still. Like I was been busy all day, working and so on. I went, oh God, I need a mental break. So I went outside and just sat in the sun for 20 minutes. And just that alone, that felt so good.
Very revitalizing.
The sun, letting the sun come in to breathe. Yeah.
Yep, revitalizing, and stop, take a breath, and realize that if you don't get this done or that done, or if you don't read this piece of information or know that thing, the world's not going to end.
No.
It's just our little world might.
That's right.
The big world.
That's right. And so, with all this heightened Gemini activity, those of you watching this who know their birth chart, you can locate that into which house of your chart, all of this activity is going on, what's being activated here. So, is it in the 10th house of your career and your work? Is it in your 7th house of relationships? Is it in your home life, on the home front? Is it around money? Is it, what part of your life and yourself is being really triggered and activated by all of this? It's a lot.
So what else in the mix then?
So the following day then, on the 11th, our friend Mars, that masculine principle, the warrior energy, that planet that represents action, making decisions, choices, moving forward, like taking an action, comes out of Cancer, which I think Mars will be quite happy about. Mars doesn't have a natural affinity with the sign of Cancer.
I think Cancer will be booting it out and slamming the door in it too.
Had enough of you stirring things up in my personal and emotional world. That's right. And that's right. And it's going to move into Leo, which is fire and ruled by the sun. So Mars and the sun have a natural affinity with each other. Mars goes, oh, yeah, this suits me better, because Mars is a more fiery kind of energy and Leo is a fire sign. So, Leo is about the self. Who am I? What I am, the degrees to which I know myself and can be myself and express myself. So Leo, ruled by the sun, is very much about expressing the self and coming forward and being seen. There's kind of nowhere to hide in Leo, unless you've got Leo stuff in the 12th house, then you might like to kind of hide and express it more internally in a soul level. But Leo must express and shine its light and be seen. And so I think Mars here can really amp up our sense of self-courage, self-worth, self-identity, and, bring us forward and say, okay, this is where I take a stand, and it's time I actually started to show up here and express this or be this,
Yes.
Be brave.
Yeah. It's about personal sovereignty too, isn't it?
It is very much, that kind of warrior energy that's willing to take a stand and show up and say, actually, this is who I am. So Mars will be in the sign of Leo for about 7 weeks.
Okay.
Yep. Through to the end of July. And, Leo and Mars here is about passion, leadership, confidence. Yeah. So we're going to get an opportunity to perhaps see ways that we would like more of that or need more of that.
People stepping up in the public arena too.
People stepping up there. Yes, we will definitely some argy-bargy going on between leaders. Yeah. For sure. And perhaps even in people's workplaces, there might be a few little battlegrounds going on between, those in charge, because Leo is the boss. It's got that sort of energy. Mars in Leo can be quite bossy. So it might bring out that energy in us, and you might find people reacting to us every now and then saying, stop telling me what to do. You know?
Because there are some Leos who don't like the limelight or the stage, or, you know, they don't want to be the center of attention, which is quite interesting to me, because a lot of people think of Leo as exactly that, don't they?
That's right. It is very, very interesting. Sometimes Leo can have a very shy, sensitive side to it, and can be, you know, have certain insecurities. And I think, you know, it is a sign that relates to the child, to the inner child, to quite a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so there could be stuff from early childhood where there hasn't been enough opportunity for real self-confidence and self-sovereignty to kind of come forward strongly. You know, and let's just say that I'm thinking of my little 3.5-year-old grandson who's a Leo with 5 planets in Leo. But he's full of life and fun and joy and play, you know, and he runs into the room and he goes, I'm here, you know, and let's play. But he's also very sensitive. And when we go out into public spaces, he comes right up close and grabs my hand. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know? Very, very, and I've seen this before with Leo, but Mars really can activate that energy of, you know, confidence and inner strength and stepping forward. You know, it's the warrior. It makes me think of, you know, sometimes there are ceremonial performances that happen with military in different countries. You know, it's sort of like the warrior in full regalia, you know, proudly marching and, you know, this is who I am, kind of, just as a symbolic sort of image. So, yeah, so that's a great time for anyone who's really creative. Just go for it. There's a lot of energy. So Mars brings energy to whatever sign it's going through. You know, energy, drive, action. Go for it. You get the paints out. Get your dancing shoes on. You know, join a theatre group.
Yes. Get your singing voice on.
That's right. Let it out. Stand up and be seen. So, yeah, so that's that coming in just straight after the eclipse. Now, June the 15th, and I'm just going to do the main things because there's quite a number of big things happening in the month of June. So the next big thing, because there's always lots of, you know, day by day, there's lots of other movements going on. On June the 15th, we have the second exact square between Saturn and Uranus.
So it's that day.
That's that day. So this is all happening around, you know, around the eclipses. I mean, those two planets have been in a square since the beginning of the year and continue through to the end of the year. So that's a main theme for the whole of 2021. But the second of 3 exact squares occurs on the 15th, while that eclipse energy is still really active. So it's Saturn at 13, Saturn retrograde at 13 of Aquarius, square Uranus at 13 of Taurus, for those who want the degrees to check it out in their charts. So these two planets are very different in their energies and way of operating and so on. And they represent, the way I see it, they're like seismic forces, like pushing up against each other really strongly. And they're very different, but they're both very powerful. And they really demonstrate the incredible stresses that are happening in the world, but not only in the world, in people's lives. Like I just have been seeing it. It seems like everybody is going through big stuff, even in their personal world. That's also in some ways connected to what's going on in the outer world, but not all of it is. Some of it's just big stuff going on in their personal world, you know, big changes, pressures. And with that kind of pressure, at some point, something has to give, something cracks, something breaks, something changes. Things cannot remain the same with those two planets in this strong square dynamic with each other.
When you say something cracks, I'm thinking about bones with Saturn, broken bones.
Absolutely one definite expression of it, because Saturn is bones and structures and different forms of things, and Uranus is the earthquake energy that just breaks things.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so don't be surprised if there's more actual Earth seismic action over this period with the eclipse.
There's been a lot, and particularly the following the volcano in Iceland, which started off to be very small. Now it's huge.
I know.
Unbelievable.
And they've had a lot of, seismic activity as well as volcanoes, haven't they? A lot of movement in the ground as well.
Yeah.
I know. So
amazing.
And it's also, of course, in the world, it's those forces of control versus, and it's literally it's like versing, it's like a battle. It's a battle of the gods, battle of the titans. Who's going to win the battle? Saturn, who wants to maintain control and keep things as they were and as controlling forces want them to be. And that rebellious push from Uranus, which says, I'm not having a bar of that. And so they're pushing up against each other, pushing. And I mean, it's one expression that comes to mind is, what's happening in the streets of Melbourne. Lockdown is a Saturnian word, and people out in the streets demonstrating is Uranus, and the police, at the direction of the government and other forces, are, clashing. And that's an expression of that energy.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I hear you say at the beginning of the year that between Saturn and Uranus always wins out? Did you say that?
I don't know whether I would have said that, but what I would say about that is that the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, are very powerful, and there is a sense of they are forces of cosmic energy and evolution that are so powerful. I always have that sense that they're the big boys here, and I mean, Saturn's got a lot of power, but Uranus is a massive force, and it's like trying to build some kind of structure as a defense against an earthquake or a volcano. Like, good luck with that. It's a bit like that.
How's that working for you?
And I see it in people's charts all the time, in my work, when people are having strong Uranus transits and there's a resistance to change, I just know that this is going to happen. This cannot be stopped. We might as well get conscious about it, and recognize that actually, I need change, but I'm resisting because I'm afraid. So it's often about our fear as well. Yeah.
And that's a key word, isn't it? When you say you may as well get conscious about it, because Uranus is about consciousness too, isn't it?
Consciousness.
Yeah.
And evolution.
Yeah.
Through radical change. And it also, as a ruler of Aquarius, is about the people. It's a collective energy.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So these are big themes, big themes. So, I mean, really through all of June, these two planets are in this tight square, but that date, the 15th, when they are exact to the minute in degrees of distance. So it's adding so much to everything we've already just said before. We talked about this one, like with these eclipses going on and Mars going into Leo, you throw this square between Saturn and Uranus, which is very strong all through June, into the mix. And we're seeing all sorts of interesting things going on in the world, aren't we?
Yeah, very much so.
Big things. And sometimes, Uranus is often shocks and surprises. you know, things that you thought, oh, I wouldn't have thought that was going to happen. And it just did.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And
yes. I didn't see that one coming. Wow.
yeah. And with what you were saying before with Gemini, I mean, you know, as I've said before on here, you know, one of my long-term interests is in extraterrestrial life. And there is so much going on in the media now that journalists are going, whoa, and they have to pull up the giggle factor when they start talking about, you know, UFOs and aliens. And it's like a wake-up call. It's going through the media it's like a calling from my perspective for them to get back and do the job that they were supposed to be doing all along.
Proper research, proper information.
Yep.
Instead of just reading off a script that corporation has fed them, basically. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually do the job.
That's not just in that arena, it's in many arenas.
Many. That's right.
Yeah. And there's this fix that there are journalists who are sort of, some of them are doing the double take, which is the Gemini going, what? You know, and what we're not supposed to giggle and laugh about this subject anymore. Whereas others are jumping on board and they've sort of really grabbed that crack that Uranus has created in their thinking and their consciousness to actually say, okay, let's get onto it. You know, let's know and let's push for those answers.
Yes, and that's Uranus's job. It's to crack things open.
Yeah.
That's right.
Fascinating.
That's what's and often it's done in a way that seems shocking, like it sends shockwaves.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. It's exciting, actually.
Very.
Yes.
Because you know you could have said to me 2 months ago we wouldn't be where we are right now.
That's right.
In that community, in that arena of
yes, that's right.
Just boom, out of the blue.
That's right. So yeah, a lot of unexpected things happen with this kind of energy, and yes, there's just so many issues.
Yeah.
So then, of course, on the 21st, the sun leaves Gemini, and in many ways, I think there will be a sense of, things kind of start to feel like they might start settling down a little bit. But Mercury will still be retrograde in Gemini, but the sun leaves the sign of Gemini and moves into the sign of Cancer. So when the sun is at 0 degrees of Cancer every year, and that can be on the 20th or the 21st, sometimes the 19th, you know, that specific date can vary, but this year it's on the 21st. That, of course, is our Southern Hemisphere winter solstice. It's not a fixed date. It's when the sun enters Cancer. And so the sun has moved its furthest north on the horizon that it will do, and it literally hits the Tropic of Cancer, and then stops. The word solstice literally means the sun is at a standstill, and slowly begins to make its way back down towards those declination degrees towards the equator, and sits on the equator, like the celestial equator, that also like our equator. If we watch the sun rising at different positions throughout the year, every day, you can see it's rising at different locations. And it's aligned with the equator at the equinox, you know, which will come in September. So this is the winter solstice, and the sun will begin to grow stronger and start to sort of move to the south. So it's another powerful time. It's another portal, if we want to use that word, you know, another opportunity. And I think solstices, particularly the winter one in the dead of winter, is classically a time, if we're able to be still. And Cancer is a sign that goes, yes, you know, winter. You know, we live in Brisbane, so it's not a place where many people have fireplaces, but just up the road in Tamborine they do.
Yes.
You know, and out west many of them do, because it gets very cold. So you know, and many people have ceremonies with fire, you know, to welcome back the sun, so to speak. So it's a time of a pause, you know, to pause, be still. And I think on that same date, Jupiter is also at a standstill and begins to retrograde at 2 degrees of Pisces. So I would really be recommending to people, if at all possible, if they're able to, on the 21st, on that day or for a couple of days over that period, if they're able to have a bit of a pause, you know, look at your schedule in advance a bit and seeing if you can just make a bit of space there. Just, I know that's not easy, but, you know, for some that will be easy. That will be very doable. It's a wonderful opportunity to do that. And it might mean, you know, people like me who work from home, sometimes you've actually just got to leave home for the day.
Yes.
If you stay at home, there's always a million things to do. You know, just get out and, you know, go somewhere else to get that pause and that space. So yeah, the solstice in Cancer, a water sign, Jupiter turning retrograde in Pisces, a water sign. The water signs always tend to call us more inward, time for reflection. Take a breath, slow down. And on that same day, Venus in Cancer is trine Neptune in Pisces. So there's a lot of that. It's a lovely water, quiet time of reflection, if that's possible in your life. You know, I just think it's you know, mark that date if you can. Even if it's just part of the day, you get to do some of that. You know, I mean, solstices are also times of closure and endings, and a lot of people might be going through something like that in their life. You know, something's coming to an end, a way of life, a relationship, a job, a career. You know, it can be all kinds of things going on like that for people during this time, and certainly during, I think, the month of June. With all these big energies moving, you know, things can't stay the same.
Yes.
You know, they just can't. And then on the 23rd, 2 days later, our friend Mercury goes, okay, my work is done here. I'm going to turn direct again. You know, so the lovely mayhem that I've created. But remember, Mercury retrograde isn't always just mayhem for the sake of it. It can feel like that. Mercury retrograde is always about looking deeper, going back over things, having those conversations in Gemini that maybe previously were really quite different. Like, this is time, let's actually really talk about this. You know, there's a few things I want to ask you. Can we have this possibly difficult conversation? You know, that's the beauty of Mercury retrograde. Might be time to do some deeper research, to rethink our position. You know, ask some deeper questions. That's the real point of Mercury retrograde, always, and especially in Gemini. We need to have some real conversations here. You know, when you told me this, like, I need to know more about that.
Yeah.
So Mercury turns direct at 16 degrees of Gemini on the 23rd. And that brings us to the full moon, which will occur on June the 25th at 3. The moon will be at 3 of Capricorn and the sun will be at 3 of Cancer. So we'll talk about that. But that full moon feels just a whole lot calmer. You know, we'll have come out of that big Gemini period. There's no big aspects, and we'll talk about that next time we come together, but there's no big energies hitting that full moon. It feels very, very different. We're in a big high energy month right now.
And that Capricorn, you said full moon in Capricorn.
Yes, so the moon will be in Capricorn opposite the sun in Cancer.
Which is very grounded. And
that's right.
Yeah, so we can, from lofty whizzy airspace, we come in for landing.
That's right. It feels like the dust will settle a bit.
Yes.
You know, at the moment, it's like there's whirlwinds, you know, there's just things are spinning, and it's not easy, you know, because it can feel relentless on a daily basis, you know, day by day by day. Yeah. Can we take a breath? Can we remember to breathe, even if it's just in the moment? Sometimes just that.
Yeah.
Pause to breathe and let it out can really help.
So the recommendation for June is to just slow down.
If you can, that's right.
If you can, don't get caught up in the tailwind of everything.
That's right. Let some things go.
Yeah, let some things go.
Absolutely. Even your social life, if your social calendar is just out of control, just say, look, sorry, I actually can't do that. Just drop some things.
Yeah. And sort of, yeah, well, that's good advice when things are just whizzing around you, you know.
They really are. Yeah. I mean, and for some people, they're going to love it. They're going to be thriving on this and maybe getting a heap of work done, or, you know, it can also, it's not all sort of just difficult for everybody, but yeah, some people will really be at their full power, you know, with all of this energy, just because they're that way inclined. They might be very Geminian, very mutable, and everything's getting lit up in a way that they're really enjoying.
Yeah. There you go. You just never know what the stars are going to bring, do you? The planets, I should say.
Yes. Thank goodness we have
really interesting, all the cycles and how they affect humans on Earth.
Sure is.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Babula, for running us through all of that. And I've got a lot of notes there that I'm going to go away and have a look, put in my diary for those days.
Yes, great. Good to note these things in our diary.
Yeah, because then you can go, oh, that's why.
That's right. That's right.
That's why I fell over and broke my arm.
Right.
No. That's why I had a fun time with those people.
That's right. Oh, that's why that phone call has just happened. That's just changed everything.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and thanks everyone for joining us. And we will be back next time with the full moon in Capricorn. So until then, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.